Question was, who is the witness?
Mr. Crespo, you had an opportunity to consult with your lawyer?
Yes, I have.
The question was, on August 2nd, 2010, when you went to your property in Deltona Beach, Florida, who was the person that was with you?
The person that was with me was my daughter, Maureen Crespo.
Where does she reside?
She resides in Hollywood.
She saw the condition of the residence?
She did. She spent 2 days with me cleaning it up.
And how old is Maureen?
39.
Is she employed?
Yes, she is.
Where's she employed at?
She's employed in the automotive industry. Don't recall the exact name or location.
So after, let's back up, go back. Is Edward Crespo your full legal name?
Edward Alan Crespo.
You ever been known by any other names?
There was an incorrect clerical error placed in my public record, which identified me under another name at one point.
But have you ever used that alias?
No, I have not.
Whether in business, social, never used it?
No, I have not.
So you have no clue how that came to be?
Oh, I know how it got there. I just simply, it wasn't by my doing.
Who was the person who put it there?
A police officer back in 1989.
And why would they use the name of D'Amato?
Because some documents were found in the car that I was driving that came back to somebody named D'Amato. And since I didn't have any identification at the time, they automatically assumed it was me.
So it was incorrectly put in the computer. You've never used the last name D'Amato in any form or capacity?
A police officer told me when I was taken into custody that if I did not confess to being Alan D'Amato, they were going to, quote-unquote, lose me in the system for a day or two. So at that point, I was compelled to say, yes, I am Alan D'Amato.
And that was in 1989?
Pardon me?
That was in 1989?
About approximately 1989, yes, somewhere, I believe.
And what was the reason that you were arrested in 1989?
It was on ultimately it became an attempted possession of drugs.
What type of drugs?
Cocaine.
Were you selling drugs, or how did
No,
that?
I don't sell drugs, I never have.
I'm just asking the question, sir.
Yes, I understand that. I'm just
saying,
responding.
well, I'm saying it's attempted possession of drugs. How did that come and be that drugs were in your possession?
Set up an undercover police reverse sting operation.
So you're purchasing cocaine for your own personal use?
Yes. Well, actually, it was going to be for someone else, but I was the only one there.
And did you get convicted of any offenses?
I pled no contest to attempted possession of cocaine.
And what were you sentenced to?
At that time, it was a year and a day, served approximately 12 weeks.
Any other crimes you've never been convicted of?
In 1988, I was convicted of possession of cocaine.
What was your sentence then?
A year and a day, served 16 weeks.
And since 1989, you've had no...
Nothing whatsoever. Well beyond the 10-year rule.
Hello?
Hi, I have the attorney back on the phone, and he requests that the person being deposed speak up because he cannot hear them at all.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
We'll just turn it the other way. Guillermo? Should be better.
Guillermo, you there?
Yep, I'm back.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Where do you presently reside, Mr. Crespo?
1945 Jackson Street, Hollywood, Florida.
And how long have you resided there?
Approximately 10 years.
My client ever been to your residence?
To my knowledge,
To your
no.
knowledge. And where does your place of business, sir?
I'm self-employed.
What do you do?
I'm a professional entertainer.
What does that mean?
I'm a DJ MC.
And where do you work at?
I work for different companies, different nightclubs, so forth. I do private parties.
Mostly like weddings,
Sometimes.
P16s,
Sometimes, yes.
or business functions?
Yes, sometimes.
What's the name of your company?
There's no corporate name. I'm not incorporated or under any sort of business. I just simply go by the name DJ Eddie or All Occasions Entertainment. But again, it's not an official company. It has never legally been filed.
In your petition, you put down that you've known Mr. Jalil since November 12th, 2009.
Yes, that was when we signed the lease.
That's when he signed the lease.
Mm-hmm. Didn't start his rent until December 1st.
How did he find you?
I believe he responded to an ad that I had posted in the for rent section.
In local magazine, or?
I don't recall. It may have been the Penny Saver. I believe I used to use the Penny Saver.
And how did you find out that he was employed with Blue Delta Private Investigators?
He informed me of it
When did he do that?
in the very beginning, back when we first met, and I agreed to rent the house to him
In on or about November of 2009?
in that general area. Yes.
Okay, in your petition, if you turn to section 3, paragraph 4. First incident that you're claiming that my client did something wrong was that he contacted your attorney, just Holiday Hunt Russell, by sending him a document.
The first incident?
Just the first thing you claim in your petition. Not saying by Dan, I'm just saying right here, most recent incident, May 16, 2011.
Oh, the most recent incident, not the first incident.
First incident you claim in your petition, this is the first one listed.
Oh, okay, right, which is the most recent incident.
Okay.
Okay, in other words, I just want to make sure that we understand that this was by no means the only thing he did just recently. I mean, this has been going on for a year. Yes, okay, that's fine, yes, I acknowledge that he did send the document to my attorney
Okay.
on May 16th.
Did he send that document to you directly?
I don't believe he did. I don't recall, out of everything that I've received from him, I don't believe that was one of them. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay, and you say in here that he also sent the document to Volusia County Sheriff's Office.
Amongst many other law enforcement agencies.
How do you know he actually sent it there?
Oh, those I did receive copies of.
You personally did?
Yes.
Okay, you claim that, let's see, let's go to Exhibit 1. Let's take a look at that first. You there yet, Mr. Crespo?
Exhibit 1 for me is the top page.
This one here.
Oh, excuse me.
Is that
Oh,
your
yes,
handwriting at the
yes.
bottom, Exhibit 1?
No,
That's
mine.
That's Mr. Hunt's hand? Okay. This is Exhibit 1, so this is the exhibit that's attached to your petition.
Yes.
It says it's a memorandum.
Mhm.
Okay, it says to the Sheriff Mealy, Volusia County Sheriff's Office.
Yes,
Then
that's
also-
that is incorrect. Sheriff Melee is...
Not a question
Oh,
pending.
excuse me, I'm sorry.
If you
I
have anything to say to
excuse
him, please say it on the record.
I don't have to say it on the record as long
Well, you
as
can't
the
whisper.
questions-
You can't whisper it in here. If you're saying anything or giving him any information, we're at a deposition. It needs to be written down by the court reporter.
As long as a question is not pending, I'm allowed to consult with my client, and it's privileged, and I'm not saying it on the record. You can keep going.
Okay, excuse me, I'm sorry.
If you whisper things in his ear, you're not going to put on record. We're going to stop deposition. I mean,
That's your entitlement.
he's like on the stand, like right now. So
He's
you can't
not on
be-
the stand, he's in a
Yeah, I
deposition, and I'm
understand.
allowed to
He's
consult
under
with him
oath.
as long as a question is not pending.
the other person here is Holiday Hunt Russell?
Yes.
Okay. You're not included in the two part of this, correct, are you?
I'm sorry, what?
Your name is not listed with Sheriff Mealy or Holiday Russell?
It may not be listed on the actual memorandum, apparently.
It's not addressed to you, though.
No, it is not.
So did you receive a copy of this memo through your attorney, Mr. Russell, or did you receive it from my client directly?
I believe I may have received it from Mr. Russell. Again, like I say, I don't remember exactly from what source it came from, but of course, at some point, I did get a copy.
And this memorandum is regarding a complaint that my client filed against of some events that took place, correct?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
This complaint that he alleges, you said, is the first incident of his. I don't know what you're claiming, but what you claim is some kind of violence by my client. This is the most recent incident. He files this. He sends this paper off to your attorney and to Sheriff Mealy.
This memorandum is actually confirmation of a meeting that he had with Sheriff Mealy on May 9th, 2011, in which he actually filed a complaint. Fraudulently, I might add.
But this is the first. I mean, how are you claiming that this is some type of violence perpetrated on you? That this isn't even addressed to you.
It's included in an evidentiary capacity, and like you said, it's not addressed to me. My attorney included it, therefore it must have some relevance. The memorandum is incorrectly identifies the police officer. It doesn't actually make any threats against me, but then again, none of his memorandums really have, in terms of violence. That was done in a different fashion.
So this memorandum makes no threat against you in here, correct?
If you'll give me a minute, I'm just going to have to read through it. No, just a lot of false statements.
So, if you look back on Section 3, Paragraph 4, it says, Respondent has directed at least 2 incidences of violence, which is in quotation marks, meaning assault, aggravated assault, battery, aggravated battery, sexual assault, sexual battery, stalking, aggravated stalking, kidnapping, or false imprisonment, or any other criminal offense resulting in physical injury or death against petitioner or a member of petitioner's immediate family. One of these incidences of violence has occurred within 6 months of the date of filing of this petition. The most recent incident, including date and location, is described below. It's on May 16, 2011. A letter to Sheriff Mealy and to Mr. Russell. Which one of those categories of violence are you saying this is regarding?
I'll object to the form.
I'm not quite sure what you're looking for here, Mr. Collin. The death threats that I received from your client were not written on paper, obviously.
The question is you attach Exhibit 1 as your first incident of violence. Where in here is there any violence as in the meaning of the definition here in your petition?
I object to the form.
I'm afraid I can't answer the question because I really don't understand what it is you're looking for. Okay, I'm not an attorney. This was attached by my attorney. Maybe you should be asking him.
It's your petition, sir. I'm just asking why you thought it necessary to attach this incident as...
It's my petition that was filed by my attorney.
You signed it under oath that everything here is true and correct.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
So I'm just trying to add, the most recent incident, this is a letter to the sheriff and to Mr. Russell. We haven't gone into what really the contents are of it, but I don't think anything in here is directed towards you directly. So I just want to be curious as to why you thought the need to attach this as Exhibit 1.
Check to the form.
I go by what my attorney decides is the best way to proceed in these matters. That's about the best answer I can give you.
So you have no idea why this is attached to Exhibit 1.
I'm not an attorney, Mr. Collin.
Let's go through the document. You're not an attorney. Let's find out why you think this is relevant. It says, obviously, it purports that Mr. Jalil drafted this. And he talked about a phone call that took place on May 13, 2011. Call from a number 954-922-1253.
Yes.
Do you know what that call was from? Is that your phone number?
Yes, that was my phone. Yes, that's my phone number.
Do you call him on May 13, 2011?
I actually didn't call him. I called the number listed on his website for his office at 37 North Orange Avenue in Orlando. The purpose of my phone call was just to verify whether or not the office still existed and if that indeed was the correct mailing address in order to have him served.
Okay. So
I did not know that Mr. Jalil would be the one to answer the phone. I thought I would be talking to a secretary or somebody that appears in one of his website pictures that appears to be an employee or partners, but apparently is not. I didn't realize that Mr. Jalil is actually just an office of one and that he forwards all the calls to his office directly to his cell phone. So when I called him, I wasn't calling him, I was just calling what I thought was his office.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you called his office?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. It says in here, it says, I received a threatening phone call from D'Amato, in parentheses, Crespo, on my phone.
Yes.
And he lists the number, I guess that's his phone number, 484-599-1070. Identified the caller as Alan D'Amato or Edward Alan Crespo by his voice. Just say Mr. Crespo asked me where I was located. I asked the caller, is this Edward Alan Crespo or should I say Alan D'Amato? The caller stated in the affirmative that he was Edward Alan Crespo. Mr. Crespo then made a statement saying the words, shooting you, or something similar to that effect. The statement was unclear. Given his angry and threatening demeanor and the word shooting, I thought it was best to end the conversation. So, through that conversation, what's your recollection of the events?
Well, first of all, let me state for the record that having studied your client's tactics and strategies, I can tell you right now that that's one of his more easily recognized ones. He points the finger and he yells, you're threatening me, you're harassing me, but in reality it's him that's doing all the threatening and harassing. He's very clever. The other thing is that the word shooting, as he describes it, was actually me telling him, guess what? You just shot yourself in the foot. It's a phrase that you will find repeatedly throughout this case. It's one of my favorite expressions when describing Mr. Jalil's actions.
Why do you say he shot himself in the foot?
Oh, well, Mr. Jalil filed fraudulent complaints based on false information which he obtained without bothering to verify or confirm it. Not very professional for a big-brain private investigator like him.
Big brain, is that supposed to be a derogatory remark?
My description, he's well-educated, he tells everybody how smart he is, he goes to great lengths to show everyone his vast knowledge of legal terminology and legal proceedings, and yet he makes the stupidest mistake of all. He gets hold of unverified, unconfirmed information, and instead of doing his job as a professional, decides to go ahead and try to use it against me. Afterwards, of course, he found out that was a mistake.
Are you angry with Mr. Jalil?
I've been the victim of his one-man terrorist campaign for about a year now. I'm more in fear for my life right now than I am angry. Although, yes, I am certainly angry. Mr. Jalil's actions were unlawful. He engaged in an unauthorized investigation without having a legitimate case. His only client was himself. He slandered me to virtually everybody he could think of. He filed false statements in his memorandums to half a dozen different law enforcement agencies, and then he accused me of engaging in identity fraud. That's where he shot himself in the foot.
Okay. But you called his office on May 13th, 2011.
Yes, I just wanted to confirm the location and the address.
Even though you're so afraid of him.
Pardon me?
Even though you're afraid of him. You wanted to engage in his office and call his office.
I wanted to confirm his office address so he could be served.
But you didn't file or sign these paperwork until the first week of June.
I'm sorry, what paperwork is that we're talking
The
about?
petition.
Oh, well, my attorney determines that schedule.
And then later on, in the document, it says on May 13, 2011, you got a call from 954-920-5153.
Yes.
Do you know what that phone number is?
Yes, that was Mr. Russell calling him to discuss the situation.
And what's the situation?
The situation was that Mr. Jalil was continuing to harass me and filed false information. He improperly injected himself into an unrelated civil proceeding that I am involved in. He filed false statements with the federal court alleging fraudulent identity, when in fact, it has been my determination that Mr. Jalil certainly must have been aware that his information was incorrect at the time he obtained it.
How would you know that?
Well, simple, Counselor, the timeline of events. Your client's revelation about my alleged false identity occurred in February of this year, 2011, when, according to him, my former tenant, Brian Stewart, reached out to him with this new information from the Department of Corrections website. However, if you go back 6 months prior to August of 2010, when Mr. Jalil first initiated his unlawful investigation, it was at that point that he had already obtained my entire public record, along with many other bits of personal information, using my real name, Edward Alan Crespo. Therefore, when he was given this information about Alan D'Amato, if nothing else, he must have at least had a reasonable expectation that there was something wrong or flawed or inaccurate about the information, because he already had everything under a different name.
Finished?
Yes.
Did you instruct Mr. Hunt to call? He called on your behalf, right? Called my client?
It was his determination that a phone call was warranted.
Mr. Hunt represent you in other matters also?
He has.
How many other times has he represented you?
Is that privileged?
I'm listening, you can answer.
I don't want to know what he talked to you about. I just want to know what other capacities represented him.
He has represented me in other civil matters unrelated to this case.
Did you send Mr. Jalil a copy of, send him a fax on May 11, 2011?
I don't have any documentation in front of me, and I don't recall exactly what it is you're talking about.
I'm just saying he references in his memorandum that you thought was so important to attach to your petition. It says, my fax number is 702-920-8824. On May 11, 2011, I received a fax from 954-922-1253 at 7:45 Eastern Standard Time. I did not see this fax until May 16, 2011. Fax empties into email and cannot be viewed until May 16th. The fax included a letter by D'Amato/Crespo, which appears to be a tattered birth certificate and what appears to be a certificate of restoration of civil rights. There is no photo identification of a person or fingerprint. I do not know if these documents are, in fact, the property of the person I have been dealing with and has been harassing and threatening me.
First of all...
Was there a question in that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, ask the question.
Did you send a copy of your birth certificate or a certificate of restoration of civil rights to...
I did send him that, but the curious part of Mr. Jalil's statement here is that the phone number is wrong. 954-922-1253 is my home phone number only. I have a dedicated fax line with a completely different number. I don't know where Mr. Jalil got the home, well, he knew the home number, obviously, but that was not the number from which I sent him the fax. So that's an incorrect.
You sent him a fax directly from you, and it wasn't a communication by Mr. Hunt to Mr. Jalil.
Yes, that is correct. I sent him only a copy of my birth certificate and my certificate of my award of executive clemency from the governor's office dated September of 2003, just as proof of my real identification. I did not send him a copy of my driver's license or passport or anything that would give him any more personal information about me than was absolutely necessary.
In his paragraph, he doesn't even reference your driver's license or your passport.
That's right, because I didn't send it to him.
But you felt the need to send him something on May 11th, 2011.
I just wanted him to know about the mistake he had made.
And then 2 days later, you called him to make sure that...
I called his office.
Let
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
counsel finish his question, and then you answer the question.
Sure.
And then you called him 2 days later to make sure that you knew his office address to serve him, correct?
I didn't call him. I called his office, according to the information on his
So
website.
you called his office.
Yes.
And then Mr. Russell followed up later with a telephone call with my client.
That sounds about right.
Do you know who Brian Stewart is?
Yes, I do.
Who's Brian Stewart?
He's a former tenant of mine and confirmed utilities thief.
What do you mean by utilities thief?
The city of Deltona would be very interested in locating Mr. Stewart for the theft of public utilities that he committed while he was in my property, while he was renting my property.
From what time to what time was he living in your residence?
I don't have his lease in front of me, but he was in there for approximately three, maybe 4 months at the most, at which time he violated the terms of his lease and moved out just before he was about to be served with eviction.
How did he violate the terms of his lease?
He failed to pay the rent.
And was his rent the same as Mr. Jalil, $625 a month?
I believe it was $650.
Why was he charged more than Mr. Jalil?
Actually, Mr. Jalil's, the original rent that I wanted from, during the time Mr. Jalil rented the house was $650. That was what it was listed for originally. Mr. Jalil talked me into giving him a $25 a month discount, which I was nice enough to do. That's why Mr. Jalil only paid $625 a month.
Okay. Is there a broken window at your property in Deltona?
No, there is not.
Who's Chris Margies?
I have no idea. I believe your client identified him as the next-door neighbor, but if that is the person that we're talking about, I don't understand why his name would even be mentioned. He's an uninvolved third party, and he is mentally challenged.
Mr. Margies is
If
mentally...
that's his name, I don't really know. I know him by sight, that he lives next door to the house. I've spoken to him a couple of times. He's a very nice guy, but he's obviously challenged.
Mr. Stewart says he complained about the broken... Well, Mr. Jalil writes in here that Mr. Stewart complained about a broken window at the residence. That ever happened?
Mr. Stewart told me that he had repaired that broken window on his own when he moved in. This, of course, turned out to be a false statement. I was not aware that the kitchen window, I assume that's what we're talking about, it's just a single pane of glass inside the house. I was not aware that the window remained broken. I was told by Mr. Stewart that it had been repaired. But then again, Mr. Stewart lied to me almost as much as your client did.
So you don't have a lot of good relationships with your past tenants?
I'm sorry, what now?
So that's another tenant you don't have a good relationship with after the tenant was over?
Just in a form.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. No, I get along, I've done quite well with most of my tenants. Simply your client and his cohort, Mr. Stewart.Ose are the only two that I've had problems with.
Do you think they're in cohorts together?
I know they are.
How do you know?
How do I know? Simple. First of all, your client says that Mr. Stewart, quote-unquote, reached out to him about the website information and the complaints about the house, how would Mr. Stewart even have known of Mr. Jalil's existence? They didn't come one right after the other. As far as I know, they've never met. In between Mr. Jalil's rental of the property and Mr. Stewart's rental of the property, there was another tenant, completely unrelated, that was there for a short period of time. So how did Mr. Stewart know about Mr. Jalil's existence, let alone how to contact him? Then, of course, there's the information on the website. Your client lists one of his many abilities as a private investigator as asset recovery. Mr. Stewart is a self-described repo man, albeit an illegal and unlicensed one. They're both in the same line of work, you might say.
Okay.
So the only way your client, the only way that Mr. Stewart could have known your client is if he knew him beforehand.
Did you ever harass Mr. Stewart's 19-year-old daughter?
I never harassed her during the time that I even briefly, for 1 minute, even met his 19, and by the way, it's not his daughter, it's his girlfriend's daughter. During the 1 minute time that I actually met this girl, I was accompanied by Deputy Melee.
You know Deputy Melly?
Do I know Deputy?
Yeah.
Yes, I met him a couple of times, actually, before your client had his meeting with him on May 9th.
You met him a couple times before?
Yes, he came to the house when I was serving notice, 24-hour advance notice of inspection on Mr. Stewart. I had, before I approached the house, I waited down the street and called for a police officer to come and be there as a witness and to provide security.
You've met him only in a professional capacity?
Yes.
No personal relationship with this?
No, of course not. Nice kid, though.
If you would, when you reach a natural breaking point, I could use a restroom break.
Let's take a break now.
I'll be right back. Where is it?